Good morning, everybody. Happy Easter.
Oh yes,
Happy
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm already in Easter for longer than you are. Happy Easter.
Good evening. Good day.
Good day. Good day.
Yes, thank you ever so much for joining us, everybody, and welcome to the show, Ehsan Dashti, CEO and founder of TRITON. Morning, afternoon even, sorry. Happy Easter, thanks for coming on. Here he is, the man himself. I'm sure plenty of people in the audience have seen you before and heard of TRITON, which we're going to dig into a little bit this morning. But Sean, Drip, you good?
Good morning. How you doing?
All right.
I mean, Sean sounds wonderful on his new microphone, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Sounds wonderful.
You know what? I've actually put them back in the.
Back in the box.
Drippy, what is your real name? Do you go call you Drippy?
Ryland. Right. I mean, you can call me anything. Trust me, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But Ryland was my birth name. Yeah, sadly.
Okay, I'll leave it Drippy. That's easy.
Oh, mate, whatever you want, mate. Honestly, no offence taken.
It's either drippy or droopy, depending on the time of the day. But in the morning, it's normally drippy.
Unfortunately, I never droopy. Unfortunately.
Anyway, let's not go there. Sean, you've been fishing. Caught much?
Yeah, I've had a little bit of downtime. I had my grandma or gran. She passed away. As there was a bit of sort out on that sort of front, and because she lives up where I used to live, not where I am now, it was easier for me to stay at the lake fishing. So I just was clearing out her house during the day and then fishing at night. So yeah, I've had a bit of downtime, but yeah, back at work now, back doing what I do, and been looking forward to this one actually.
Good.
Sorry to hear that, mate.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, she was 91. Yeah, it happens, doesn't it, at the end of the day?
It does.
You caught some fish, though, more importantly, should I say. You caught some fish.
More importantly. Yeah, forget about your nan. More importantly.
More importantly, you caught some fish.
Yeah.
Any big ones? Any whoppers?
Yeah. I've caught biggest fish in the lake a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, I've done all right, to be fair.
Just caught the biggest fish in the lake, you know.
Yeah.
Good old boy.
We're good. Right, all right, let's jump in and say good morning to people who've made the effort this Easter Sunday to join us. John Boy's with us. Morning, John. Hope you're good.
Morning, John Boy.
What else we got in here? Melinda's with us. Fellow Aussie.
All right, sexy pants.
Yeah. What else we got in here? Leroy's here. Morning, Lee.
Good.
Neil's here, offshore reefer. Good morning.
Morning.
Happy Easter to you. Here she is, Amanda. Good morning. Happy Sunday.
Offshore reefer sounds cool.
Yeah.
He's normally got. Is that the same geezer? He's normally got a different avatar, isn't he?
Yes.
Same geezer.
Yeah, it is Neil. Yeah.
Neil.
Hope you're good, Neil. We've got Amanda with us. Reefy AF have jumped in. Not sure who that is. Must be Ronald, but I don't know what he's.
It might be Ronaldo. Morning, sausage.
Morning. John B. Oh, good morning. He had a nightmare last night on the Salty Banter Live. He could not get his camera and microphones to work.
And I bet it's kept him up all night.
It was entertaining. He was persistent, though, bless him. He must have given it nearly an hour trying to get him working, and it was to everybody else's entertainment. If you watch it back, it was rather funny.
If you can't get it up after an hour, I'd say just call it a day. Isn't it?
Morning, Jazz. Hope you're good.
Morning, Jazz.
Nice to see you. Reef Rondo's with us. Morning. Who else we got in here? Reefy Reese, good morning. Happy Easter to you. Same to you, Dan. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're good. Rama, morning. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow if you're going to meet up with us at Reefkeeper Rugby. Sean, think it is it? You still coming up? Yeah?
It is.
Good.
That's a long old boot for you, Sean, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. I'm actually going to go up and stay at Wheelie Bin for the night. I'm going up there after this.
In the wheelie bin, or?
I hope not. I hope he's got to be fair, it could be a bit of a nightmare because he's just had a little baby, isn't he? So it could be night screaming, so I might end up sleeping in the van.
Well, you might be screaming yet. You never know. Don't know where you're sleeping.
Well, yeah.
What else we got in here? Matty Boy's with us. Morning, Matt. Looking forward to catching up with you tomorrow. Jupers, hope you're good. Not seen you for a while. New avatar. Very cool. Nice.
Old Jupers.
Good. What else we got in here? Dave's Reef. Morning, happy Easter.
Morning,
Hope
mate.
you're good, Dave. Morning.
Dave, is that Dave from up north, Dave, who we met at Thingy Bob? No?
I haven't.
Oh.
You mean Dave Bensley?
Yeah, is that
No.
him? No. All right,
Ben.
morning, Dave.
Hi, Ben. Thank you, Matt.
Who else we got in here? Mr. Fox is with us, travelling over to the States at the minute. Hope you're good. Safe journey, mate.
Morning, mate.
I can't do it, but you can imagine what Ron would do if he called this out. Good morning, Willstone Reefer. Hope you're
I don't
good.
know why, but that makes me laugh so much when he does that. I don't know why.
Ryan's with us as well this morning. Thinking about shutting his tank down. Don't do it, mate. You'll regret it. And what else we got in here? DC Reefing. Morning. Not seen this one before. Good morning. Thanks for joining. Michelle. Good morning. Hope you're good. We've got UKM 120. Anthony's with us. Morning. I can see a few questions coming through, so we'll get to those in a bit. Liam, hope you're good.
Morning, bruv.
Morning. Steve's with us.
Annie.
Rob's with us.
Roberto.
Ben's with us.
Benji.
Coming in now. I think that's about everybody. But as always, as we always say, we'll try and call you out if you join us later on. So, yes, thanks ever so much again, Ehsan, for joining this Bank Holiday Sunday.
Sure.
I know about Triton. Sean knows a lot more than me about Triton. Not nearly as much as you, obviously, because you're the guy that founded it back in 2008, dare I say? Is that right?
Yes,
Got me here right?
Yeah.
2008.
Yeah.
So for the benefit of Drippy and some of the people maybe in the audience, and just to sort of give us a little bit of background, do you mind by starting, just give us a little bit of introduction in terms of who you are and your background and how you came to where you are today, if you don't mind?
Yeah. So it started for me. Reef keeping started when I was 12, right? So I only had reef tanks, never had freshwater, and I studied chemistry. My dad is a chemist, mom is a pharmacist. So at one point, like realistically, the company started because my dad said, "Listen, there is kind of you can go and kill some mice and other things, or you just do your own company because you love that hobby so much." And then my dad says it to me, and he's here actually. He's visiting us right now. He said, like, do it, and we just did it. So we found a Triton, and in that time, I'm not sure if many people were reef keepers 2008 or before. There was no ICP, no nothing. There was just like little bottles you put in the tank, and you hope the best realistically, and they promise you everything, trace elements and whatever. And pretend to be very scientific. And this wasn't just the case, and that was totally frustrating for me and a lot of people I knew. So I said, I want another type of company. My dad actually said, this is not an industry, they're just selling bottles, so let's create an industry out of it, like the chemical part, right?
Yeah.
And that's how we founded Triton. So we went there and transparently showed people what is in the tanks, and we started with HPLC, and there was a lot of other stuff that in the beginning, and then at one point, I think 2011, I bought my first ICP and bought that technology, brought this to the industry, right? So that was kind of the beginning of all the trace element analysis, and we did a lot of work to understand what trace elements do in aquariums, and then we created it. From there, we got our second machine, and then at one point, obviously, that idea was a really good idea, helped a lot of people, and we've proven it to work. Then other companies started doing it too, right? And from then on, it just exploded. So when we were still alone, it wasn't that, like, people would say like, oh, this is overkill. What do you do? Just do a water change, right? But as soon as we're proven, and then you got competition, let's say that, you get proven in real life, and then it just went crazy. And nowadays, we are the biggest ICP testing company in the world. So we have 5 machines operational. 6 ones have come into Mexico. We have labs in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, Los Angeles, UK. in Australia and in Germany. And we test, because you need that test kind of the turnaround to be a bit faster than shipping it away and waiting and stuff. So for the UK, it's fast. Even if you ship it away, for sure you're close to the main kind of people running all the machines and stuff. But it's still faster if you keep it in the UK. So we exploded in that way. And in that time, like I started before, like there was before COVID, there was a lot of more shows and a lot of more education in our hobby. Like there was a lot of people putting up like, talks and things. And I got invited everywhere. So just to talk about what I'm doing, trace elements, ICP and everything. And one of the places was actually, I got invited to Cairns to talk here. And when that happened, like I was in Canada, in the US, I was like everywhere. But then when this happened, after my talk, somebody came to me that was AIMS, right? The AIMS guys, and they said, "Oh, we need somebody like you in this country." And I said, "Well, I have 3 kids, you can't just take me for 2 years and then send me back." And they said, "Oh yeah, no, we're gonna sort that." And they just sorted it. So at one point, yeah. So we came here. Then I had another kid meanwhile, so I have 4 kids. And yeah, so 6 years now we moved over like a lot of things. The main company production and stuff still in Germany, but we're already starting here. So everything gets decentralized, right? And that's, since I'm here, I'm doing like the next level of what I did before, which was testing aquariums and kind of try to find out what's going on. And this is like a real heaven for me. Like it's just really, like we're in Cairns, so it's 15 kilometers and you reach the reef, right? So we're right at the water. We have our own research boat, so we can go wherever we want, sample water wherever we want. It's just awesome, so that's kind of what we're doing now. And honestly, nobody else in the world is doing that, so it's just us. And that's pretty unique, but it was hard. 2 of my kids couldn't even speak English. That was hard. There was a lot of computer games for me after school, which was good. But yeah, that's kind of, in short, that's the story. But I'm sure there will be questions where I can kind of keep going. But it was a very difficult move. But for the industry, it was a very important one. So you kind of need to understand, there's the difference between somebody that, looks at really bringing something forward, really being innovative. That's what we always wanted, to innovate things. And somebody that just jumps in and makes money, right? And you can't do that. You can just buy an ICP and just make money. That's no issue. Like you just copy our trace elements recommendations and you're done. But we just don't stop there. We want more. There's other things too. We're testing organic carbon as the only company since 7 years. There's so many things to it, but it's maybe going too much, like that's the background, my background. And if you're gonna, before that, my name is obviously not German, Dippy, like you asked. So I was a refugee from the Iranian war. So came with 6 years to Germany, and I've grown up there. So I still speak Farsi and German, and now whatever you want to call it, it's not English, but something with a heavy accent from somewhere. But somehow English too, so that's kind of, yeah, if you want to keep it even further back, that's what it is.
Wow. I've got to ask about the tank behind you. Thank you for answering that. Thanks for that update, or that sort of background. The tank behind you then, where are you? You at home, or are you in a lab now? Are you in a work facility?
My lab. That's
okay.
Yeah, I can show you around later, no problem. It's just dimming down, so I just fed the fish. But yeah, it's our new shoal tank. So I don't know if people know my old shoal tank. That was a really crazy tank in the middle of Germany, with a 1 meter clam in it, like a 1 meter Geiger's, and there were 1 meter corals in it. This is the way I like my aquariums. Like I like them to be a piece out of the reef. I don't like little corals and big fish. I like little fish or big fish and bigger corals. You know what I mean? Like that's what makes the feeling for me. And that's going to be a similar tank set up here. Like it's the same size. There was a bit of different shape, but it's the same size, approximately the same amount of water in it. And I waited a long time to be able to do this. It's like I say, it's hard to move over from Europe to Australia and then try to get a family sorted. But now it's time, and obviously we have a lot of support this time. Like we have, I don't know if you see the pumps there. That's just
Wow.
craziness. There are two of them. I'll show you around. But that's our new shore tank. So the progress is very much we're doing a lot of videos about it. I do every Sunday a live. So I had an Instagram live in the morning, and I'll do that every Sunday or every weekend. Sometimes I'll do it from the boat. So I'll show you the reef. That's pretty cool. Like last time we had like a little turtle coming up to the boat and stuff. It's really cool. Like you can do a lot of things nowadays which you couldn't do back then. But we try to get the people from home and kind of bring them over here, because it's very important to understand what's happening out here. And that tank will be a biotope tank. So, from freshwater where people kind of create a little biotope where everything is from, that will happen here too, because we can't import coral, right? So we need to use the coral that we have here. We can't even collect them, so we need to still buy them. But, obviously we work with every collector in Australia. But then the fish will be also from here. So you're able to import fish to Australia, but we do not take any other fish than the ones from the Great Barrier Reef, So that's kind of a biotope in itself, to see what we can learn out of that, And it's Julian's idea, marine biologist Julian. He worked for Cairns Marine for a long time, and he said, let's do this as a biotope, and we do that. And listen, for me, it will be just a beautiful tank, but there will be a lot of stuff you can learn from it too, So there will be massive amounts of videos coming. Don't worry about that. Yeah.
Cool.
But I will show you around, no problem.
Cool. One question is one point that somebody's mentioned in the comments just now reminds me of, does remind me of something that we mentioned last night on one of the other streams. I can remember Triton. I think the thing that stands out to me more than anything was the Lani Light.
Yeah.
When was that? What sort of year are we talking about? Because that was really ahead of its time from memory.
17 years ago, because Lani is the name of my daughter, of my
right.
So
okay.
she's 17 and driving car now, so it reminds me I'm getting
Wow.
old. But there was when she was born, I created that light, and there was no LED light out there. I think I don't remember the name. There was one other LED light, American one, not Ecotech or something. Like I don't remember that name anymore. It was I'll find it. But and ours. But then what we did again was proving it over a tank. So we put it over our show tank and proven it to people that want to buy. We never went, this is this nanometers or this is this par or whatever. There was no need for that. Nobody knew about it anyway. So we just put it up and grow all the corals underneath it and the big clam and proven it to work, It's again, it was like a kind of it was very much looking like the ones that now again the flat versions, no fans kind of thing.
Yeah.
That was what I developed. And then at one point, somebody came to me, I think it was on Interzoo, and he said, I would like to buy this light. And I just sold it, So because I needed to decide, like when I started Triton, there was it was a very adventurous journey, right? So it was like, nobody could tell you how much money you'll make or how this ever will be accepted by people or whatever. So what we had was a little shop where you can buy corals, and I was importing unbelievable corals. That time was crazy. But then I had little fish, and then I had my lab, and I had the lights. And step by step, what we did was looking at which one works best for us. And obviously, us being like mainly chemists, and aquarists, that part worked best over time. So what we did was we stopped selling corals, which is just regional. Then we sold the Lani Lights at one point because that was tech, and that's totally different, and especially in Europe. So then what we are now, so a kind of specialist for water chemistry. And I don't think anybody else is that far as we are right now with that, So that's kind of what happened to the Lanis. And I don't know, are they still building it? Anybody know that? I don't think they do. I don't think they still exist.
I've not heard it mentioned for a long time. I can just remember that they were well out of my price point when I first got into the hobby.
Yeah, they are a pretty heavy build. Like they're really crazy. But obviously, over my tank, they were like hanging there for 8 years or 7 years or something, and they're just working. You know, so it's kind of like say the proven thing, but it was expensive. What we did was we asked people what we should put over this tank, and some of them said Lani's, but then we never hear from them, you know. So it's just like, yeah, sadly kind of gone. But I guess that's the way it is, you know.
Are they the lights that misses the emotion? Yes, let's have a look. Right, let me share this screen. This reminds me now.
Hang on, can I ask Ehsan, did you flog the rights to the light that you built then to someone?
Sorry?
Did you sell
the rights to the light that you built to someone? Right.
Yes. So there was somebody, like I say, we were in Interzoo. It was still the time of shows. Interzoo is the biggest international show. And somebody came and just said, hey, you know, I'm interested to buy it. Give me a price. And then I gave him a price and he said, yep. And it was gone. And I need to sign something that I can't build. Not as much as you think.
He had to buy his daughter a car.
You can buy a car for it. But, you know, it's kind of, I needed to sign something that I'm not allowed to build any lights anymore. You know, like I can't be. It was a serious kind of transaction.
This is a better picture for you there.
Yeah, I couldn't build a light for this tank. So yeah, that's them. Yeah, that's the Emotions tank. That tank was Triton too for a long, last time it was Triton. I don't think they have it anymore. I don't think it's still there, but that's And the pictures, if you see that tank in action, you know, it's a good light. Yeah,
looks very nice.
Yeah, very nice, very nice.
Looks very similar to the Stratton.
Yeah, these guys came to our place back then. They're younger. They came before they opened up the Emotions, or maybe just shortly after they came to us. And when you look at them, like there is also on Reef Builders and stuff, they say that my tank was the inspiration for theirs. And that's really Emotions was a long time. Yeah, they were a long time our wholesalers in Switzerland. They're still, you know. So it's just like Switzerland is not a big market. A lot of what's happening right now in the industry is because money is kind of very restricted, and it's just hard for a lot of people to survive. You know, in the past you could make money on maintenance maybe only. Nowadays you need to rethink this. You know, so it's just a bit harder than it was before, but it's recovering. So I guess, you know, at one point everything comes back. You know.
Okay. So Triton really started in the UK. It was all about this. I think the biggest message I got, again, it was very early in my reefing days when Triton started in the UK, was don't do water changes. It was like it made, you know, front page sort of news almost in terms of reefers talking to each other. You know, are you mad? You're not going to do water changes? Because back then, when I first got in the hobby, it was to have a marine tank, you had to do a water change. That was part of having a reef tank. So when you came up with this, it was a bit sort of a bit of a mind bender almost.
Yeah.
What sort of response did you get from your peers when you were doing that? Did they think you were mad, or did you have to, I suppose, get a piece of pen and paper and explain it to people? How did you promote it?
So I got kicked out of David Saxby's house. You know, like I just left it. There's a lot of stories about that, you know.
Okay.
But like, yeah, it was pretty. I was pretty harsh that time. Like that's what they.
Yeah.
You know, it came across very harsh for a lot of people, but it wasn't. You know, I understand it because in that time and still, marketing is the most harmful thing to a reef hobbyist, right? It is still the case, you know, like marketing in a bad way, okay, and back then it sounded like that type of marketing. So I'm coming up and saying, no water changes just to sell my stuff, right? But what happened shortly after is that people understood that we have a reason for it, or we explain why we're not doing water changes, right? And there was a whole thing behind it, which is a TRITON method, and it's a holistic method and stuff like that. Some people understood, some people wouldn't understand it. And so it caused a lot of, like, let's say, polarization. So they got divided a bit, right? And
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, like, without a reason, I will always still do a water change. Like, you need to, but if you do it the way we do it, which is very understandable, you have a much better picture of your water. You can see down to trace elements. You do the testing every month, maybe every two. Your whole product range is ICP tested. So there is no way you can contamine your tank really, except you make any mistakes, but then you cover through the ICPs. So nowadays, people actually understand it a bit better, because they're kind of grown up with it. But if you're grown up with 10% water change or everything dies, it's very hard to believe, So I have a lot of understanding for that, but it's always like that. Real innovation will always have this problem, if you go back in history, it's always like that, it's never will be, oh wow, here you go, kill all the horses, we have a car. That's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, it takes some time. And like I say, nowadays it's just everywhere. I mean, I go to Brazil and make talk there or make my test there for Brazilian people or for whole South America. It's just a different world now, But back then I was like hated for it until somebody copies you. Then it's fine.
Yeah, true, fair point. I think one of the things that I can vividly remember was getting the first ICP back and having this list of parameters that, again, this is going back to when I first got in the hobby. I didn't even knew were in saltwater. I'll be honest, I didn't even know they existed. So all of a sudden, you're being told to test I mean, I'm going back to when you shouldn't have any phosphates, and you shouldn't have any nitrates. Your alkalinity should be 8. It can't be 7.9 or 8.1. It had to be 8. So you start chasing these numbers, and then you get this list through, and you start to chase these numbers. Do you not think there's a danger that people can take the love or their eye off the ball or the love away from the passion and just focus on numbers and sort of, I suppose, make more mistakes, maybe?
Yeah, they do. Nowadays, they do. And it's a natural thing. It's just the way it works. I can't inhibit it. I wouldn't, I'm testing my own. I know exactly how I do it. It's proven to work. That's why everybody is doing it now, because we did this, right? But
yeah,
I've seen, I'm not saying any, any brand name, but I've seen an Italian lab test coming back not making at all sense. Like, if I share these numbers with you, you would just say this is not seawater at all. They don't know what they're doing, right? But
right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's marketing. It's, on the other hand, yeah, people get it wrong sometimes. When I started and I did my talks, I always said ICP is not for dosing trace elements. ICP 80%, 70% is for finding your mistakes. That's what you're doing it for. Oh, I have copper in there. I have lead in there. I have not for dosing zinc. That's not what you're doing it for. You know what I mean? Like, people nowadays, if you look at marketing from wherever, then people are forced to, my God, I have zero whatever, vanadium.
Yeah.
Let's add I need to add vanadium, otherwise my corals will die. That's not true. It's just not true. It's nothing will die. Or fluoride. Look at fluoride. I was forced to test fluoride again because people think fluoride is important, while I have no fluoride in my old tank, not zero, for ages. And I had fluoride because I was the first guy to measure fluoride. Then I stopped it because I said there is no value to it. Then other people did it, made a big marketing joke out of it, and now we're back to testing fluoride because people want to test their fluoride.
So yours is more for pollutants, Ehsan?
Yes, definitely. We have fluoride in our water sometimes here. For warm areas, when in tap water, they add chloride and fluoride, because of the bacteria growing in the pipes. So it's otherwise pretty dangerous. You won't have it in the UK. You won't have it in Germany. You have it here in the tropics, right? Or maybe in Texas or in California, but not in Europe that much. Maybe in South Europe. But again, we do it because people otherwise go and buy something else because they're told to fluoride is so important. You know what I mean? Like say, it's the way it works, and we do it. We said, yeah, we can do it. We're not doing it for the purpose of you dosing it. We don't believe in fluoride, but if you want to, and then look at the guys, for example, the guys from Switzerland, that tank you showed, that with it, they just believe in it. It's a religion. It's the fluoride religion. So it's not, you know what I mean? There's no evidence for it. So yeah,
I've got
Yeah.
a question which is
Yes.
a little bit round the houses. So I've only been reefing just over 3 years, right? So the water change, no water change thing, just to come back on that has always been a bit of a debate, right? And do you know what? I always stay away from debates. I always think, do you know what? You'll find your own opinion on what works for you and crack on. No one wants to be one of those helmets that is, you got to do it this way, you got to do it that way, whatever. But with a water change, because there are so many readily available products now that, for example, water changes for me, when I first come in this hobby, was all about trace elements, right? You're replenishing your trace elements. So my point to you is, if you have things like Tropic Marine Pro Coral Mineral salts that you can add in, and other trace elements and bottled trace elements, is a water change for you more to get rid of detritus, which can lead to pathogens, which means you're eliminating sort of pollutants in a way again, because you can add these trace elements, these bottled products into your tank? Do you see where I'm going?
Yeah,
What
I see
overall
where you're
is the
going.
general benefit for you for a water change if there are so many bottled products now that you can add in, that the salt that you'd be mixing to add into your tank contains anyway?
Yeah, so the salt doesn't contain any. That's what
Right.
you read on the bucket, but it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it's actually in there. And I can do that with you. Let's just do it. You understand it. And I'm all about education, right? So let's
Yeah,
do it.
yeah.
So
Yeah. Let's hear it.
if you mix salt, sea salt, right? And I can send you after this. I can send you so you can publish the recipe for it, because it's an open recipe. There's only one way or two ways or three ways to do it, but they're not very different from each other. So you have different salts like sodium chloride, magnesium chloride, calcium chloride. These salts you need to mix together and create that water that you want, right? And you know how much calcium you need, 400 milligrams, 420, right? You know how much magnesium you need, 1,360, something around. So based on that, you go and add these salts. So what I tell you is sodium chloride is the biggest part. 70% is sodium chloride. That's standard table salt, what the stuff you eat, right? That's the main part of seawater. Then the next one is magnesium, 1,360. Then you have calcium. Then you have potassium, 400. And then it goes down like that. So then you go bromide, 63. You go, whatever. You go further down. Strontium is only 8, right? Then fluoride is only 1.2. And then so you go on. So if you imagine now you're mixing, let's mix 100 kilos of salt. So 100 kilos of salt is 70 kilos of calcium chloride, and sodium chloride, right? Then you add, let's say, 3 bags of magnesium. You add 1 bag of calcium. Just go down the numbers, right? And then you add 1 bag of potassium chloride. Then you go further down. Now you end up with 8 milligrams. So 400 would be 1 bag, let's say. So how much is 8 milligrams? That would be maybe like a little glass, and they put it in. And that's strontium. Then you go for fluoride. That's maybe a teaspoon, put it in. Then you go for lithium. That's 0.1, 0.2. So that's maybe the other half of your teaspoon. And now go for cobalt, which is 0.000000006 milligram maybe. That would be 1 little piece
Flake.
of a salt. Not even a flake. Yeah, we wouldn't be able. And you put it in the 100 kilos of salt. Then you mix this, and then you fill 4 buckets because they have 25 kilos. So you mix these 4 buckets. You will have 1 bucket with 4 times higher cobalt, while the other 3 would have none. This is the truth of making salt. You'd be not able to do that with trace elements, right? So you whatever you want to do there would be so costly. And look at a bucket of salt. It's not expensive for that heavy thing shipped everywhere from Israel to the UK if you go for Red Sea. how could that be that cheap? You know what I mean? So it's just the reality of logic behind this product is there is no trace elements, and no salt will actually tell you that. There was only one that did, and then it kind of disappeared. But there was an American one. But Red Sea will not tell you that there is exactly a specific amount of trace elements in that salt, right? So just to let you know. And now go for how much water change you do. So how much water change would you do, DP, in your tank? Let's say.
Well,
In a
I'll
month.
be honest, I haven't done one for probably 2 months.
Let's say somebody that you know that is doing water change.
I would probably say they might do 10% a week.
Okay, so you do 10% a week, right? That's only 10% of your water. So you would need in your salt to replenish all your trace elements 10 times the amount that you would have in seawater to replenish. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're
Because
just
otherwise
gradually
it wouldn't
going down.
work.
Yeah.
So you only, if you go exactly seawater, you would just have zero, like a 10%, you know, pumped up. But this is why you would do a 100% water change, all right, but nobody is doing that now. So realistically, and that's what I always said, even before, like since 2008, water changes are a tool, and you need to know how to use them, right? And if you know your tool, you know exactly what you're doing. And 10% water change for extraction of something poisonous, for example, means that you only take 10% away. If phosphate is your problem, with you have 1 milligram phosphate, you will end up with 0.9. If you feed, that's right away back there. So that's not helpful, you know? And if you look at it, it's just 10% of your export. So what if you go there and make this filter 10% more efficient? No need for water changes anymore. You know what I mean? Like just this rational way of looking at a system in a holistic way.
Yeah.
I think there's a German guy who said, you know, when you step back from the mountain, you see the whole mountain.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we did with reef keeping. And that's what led to all this understanding, you know, and what we do now.
Right, I've asked the audience for questions, and I've got to be mindful that there's been a few popped up. So here we go.
Yeah.
So one for Melinda for you. Question for Ehsan: will we be getting ICPMS testing in Australia?
No, we won't do ICPMS testing because it's just not making sense. You know, in a simple way to say, there's limitations on everything, and the people think limitations in the way of testing seawater is limitation of this machine, but that's not true. It's limitations of sending the water to me. It's the limitations on your side that makes it not possible to measure down lower than micrograms, right? So this error will be so high. You touch the water and your hand, everything you do will cause already a 1 microgram error. So that noise is too big to be able to go lower in measurement than that. So it's just not making sense. It's a marketing thing that people do to get your attention, but there is no need for it. Yeah. So this is why we're not going to do it in any country, you know.
Thank you for that. Gil's Aquarium, Liam's questioning what your statement regarding fluoride. He's saying, so fluoride isn't important. That's a bold statement. I'm sure many would disagree. I think any ICP that comes back within 2 weeks shows fluoride on the results. So I think you're going to have to recap over why you believe fluoride isn't important, I think really is the main bones of that question.
So I was the first person in the world measuring fluoride in aquariums. So I did it with an HPLC, and then we did our science on it. We looked at how is my own tank reacting, how is the tanks of my customers reacting on adding fluoride or not adding it. And it was very clear back then already, before anybody else had an ICP, and you know, that it is not that important. Actually, you know, people think fluoride is measured with an ICP, but it's not. ICPs can't measure fluoride. And that, again, is a marketing thing. So we test ICP, but then we test your fluoride separate to that. I can show you, you know, it's because the ICP is just not able to measure fluoride. So that's why realistically, historically, we used another machine. So I used another machine to measure the fluoride. The fluoride came back very, not usable or not beneficial. And that's why we stopped it. And if you imagine, if I could just carry on with it, I would have made so much money just because I pretend it's important. Nobody would have said anything against it because I was the only one who could measure it. But I thought about my customers and innovation and reality, so I stopped it, right? And that should show you a very strong side of Triton, which we don't sell things that we don't not believe in. And if we don't do that, we actually lose money. And we lose customers to other companies. For example, one of the things is barium. We do not sell barium because we know if you feed your fish flakes, your barium will go up right away. So why should I sell you barium? Other people do because it's making money, right?
Yeah.
But if I go against the money, it's a very strong side for my argument, and that's the truth. So if I say there is no need for fluoride, then I'm actually going against my own sales. But it's not like, why should I say that? There is no reason for it, like so.
I respect your honesty.
Yeah, no, thank you for that.
My company is built on that. I never went wrong with it. So I never did that stuff, like when you look at us, we don't have fish food. We just stick to what we know and what we really can do well. And it always worked for us. That's why I'm telling everybody that works for me, just stick to the truth. That's it. There's no need.
Because of many of the current ICP manufacturers or providers that are available nowadays, I believe most of them you have to pay sort of for the advanced one that they offer to get the fluoride test, because it's not part of the standard testing. Is there a particular reason for that? You were saying just a minute ago that you can't test for it on the ICP. So
yes, exactly.
why would you then need to pay more to get?
They got to send it to Triton.
You need to ask them that stuff, but it's just like listen. I call it marketing, right? But it's a natural thing.
You know what I mean, though, don't you? You know what I'm saying? Sorry, you know what I'm saying, Sean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I understand that. It's another machine, though. Like that's fine. It's not an ICP. The only thing what they do is they carry that name ICP to you because you understand that now. And it's because we've proven it to work. So it's a thing that is proven. If they say something else, you wouldn't even understand. I'm doing it with a probe or whatever. Maybe it looks bad. So that's what I mean with marketing. It's a bit of a fake game, Like it's a bit of I convince you from something. I'm not lying to you because I'm in a gray zone, but I'll sell it to you.
I think it's.
I don't think it's nice.
I think there is a name for. I think it's called fraud, isn't it?
Well, it's like in the bucket, man. If you are looking at the bucket and it says it contains trace elements, that's not a lie because trace elements are everywhere and it's not saying how much.
Well,
so under the sole of my thong or my shoe, there will be trace elements. And if I tell you there's trace elements, I'm not lying to you. But if I tell you there's exactly the amount like in seawater, then I'm lying to you. It's
when you said thong, then I thought he was going to pull your pants down. But
I thought you said thong.
I thought he was going to pull your pants down.
I told you there will be laughs. I told
yes.
you.
So I have. Listen, I'm not the most intelligent reefer in the world in terms of experience and knowledge, but ICP testing, right? They're done on machines, right? I'm guessing, right? So
Can show you one.
Is every single
Right
every single company that claims to have ICP testing available, are they all using the same machines, or are certain machines outdated but they're still saying we do ICP? Like what instruments are being used to send a reading back that says, here, mate, this is how your water is?
I'll show you.
Because we don't know about this stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
no problem.
how accurate is it from one company to the next?
Yeah. So look, that's an ICP, right? And an ICP. So I just open it up. Here you see. That's the inside of an ICP. So you show you everything inside. It's a machine, right? And it looks like that. And all this stuff here, see that?
Yeah.
and all the stuff here, and all the stuff that is belonging to it, you don't buy. Okay? So you do not buy that stuff. You buy that machine like it is looking here, but nothing inside. All the inside is called the method, right? So what you need to do as a person is you buy the ICP machine and then you create a method of testing. So this
Right.
machine can test honey, soil, oil, whatever you want, right? It can test it, but you need to teach it. And that's the method. So that's what I did. I created the first method for an ICP to measure, for an ICPOS to measure salt water in a reliable way, right? And it was a mass product, so I created it. It took me a long time. I was sleeping in front of this thing, mate. The people that I bought it from, they said it won't work. They said to me, it will not work, right? So it took me 2 weeks to just hardcore go in it, and then 1 year to be able to make it to a point that I can sell it, okay? While this is Triton's IP. Nobody knows how I'm doing it. I even built things for it, like this thing, right? That's a syringe pump. I build them. Nobody knows how I do it, right? So that's better than a patent, just to let you know.
Yeah.
And now I proved this to work. And then the company here sold, only this company here sold into our industry, I think, worth 4.6 million or some, last time I measured, I calculated it, worth of ICP machines. For sure, because they say, now Ehsan can do it, here, buy it, buy it, buy it. But all these companies needed to do their own methods, you know? So it's not like they could buy mine because my method is my IP, so they need to do their own. And that's the reality of things. It's not about the machine. I can run on a really old machine the same method and be successful and get the same results, nearly the same, maybe a little bit worse because of something in the detection unit here, but not really in a big difference, right? But that doesn't mean that somebody has exactly the same machine can get the same results I get. Can you understand that?
Yeah.
So it's a bit like Formula One. Like even they standardize the cars and whatever. The driver is the guy still to make it happen. You know what I mean? It's okay, he's some parts of the car that give him benefits and whatever, but mostly it's the driver, and that's the same thing. The method is the key to this thing.
So I have another question for you, right? On the back of what you've just said, okay? So with your methods that you are extremely content with, okay? You trust your methodology, okay? Have you then sent your water off to another company for one of their ICPs, got their results back, and you know
Of course he has.
you right? Because listen, I'll be honest, as a hobbyist, you don't get access to this sort of information. You just trust that that company, right, has gone to a state-of-the-art piece of equipment and your results come back and they are bang on, mate. And then you make adjustments however you want to your tank.
That's
How
why
far wrong?
that's why I'm telling you it's not the truth. Yeah, it's not the truth. Even this machine has an error. It has the error. And sometimes you get results that not making sense, then you contact us and I will tell you, okay, I'll run a test again because it not making sense, right? So it's not no 100% ever. And if you believe that and nobody tells you that, then again you're doing the bucket of salt. You are putting this into that marketing. You are believing. I know it's not right, but still you can't blame them because they're not doing that, right? And the point is, yes, a lot of people have done that, and the tests come back different because the method is different.
Yeah.
But what's important? What is very important that I'm not about, I'm the genius, done this, all that. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
The reality is that I can talk as much as I want to you. You still do not, you maybe trust me, but you don't know if I'm telling you the truth, right? And it was the same with the lights. I could tell you I have this nanometers and this and this and this with the Lani lights, but you don't know if it's true. You can't measure it. You can't, you just need to believe me. But in the case of Triton, what we did is we said, no, we're going to prove it. And we've proven it. I mean, we're the oldest company doing that. We invented it. We then proven it. Then we got copied. That's fine. We are fine, man. We are good. You know what? We don't need to prove anything anymore. And if you want to trust me because I've proven it, not because I tell you all this stuff now, right?
Yeah.
But if somebody needs to compare something, everything ICP wise should be compared to TRITON, because that's the proven aquarium way. Not whoever comes up is a PhD in something and just want to do ICP testing and want to make money with it. Honestly, also this way of money thing, it's very helpful in our industry. Look at why I did it. I wanted to improve our hobby. I'm a hobbyist on my own. I just fed my fish, right? But the next guy came in. Is he really want to improve the hobby, or he just waited until I've proven everything and to make the money? He just did it too.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way to look at it. It's not hard. It's really not hard. It's just like, it's difficult to talk about sometimes, but it is the reality,
Ehsan, can I ask you a question?
Sure, mate. I'm waiting for this for ages.
Well, it's not. I've got loads of questions, but this
You
is
didn't
just
say that to me.
I don't know if this is true, but is it true that every single ICP result you look through personally before they get published up to the website?
Yes, it's true.
To check for anomalies and
Yes.
make sure that
Yeah, for the background noise, I look at everything, because this machine is not. It's just a machine. It's not an AI. It's no AI for it, and there will be not. So you look at it. Sometimes it just freaks out, and shows lead in every test, one lead in every test, right? So then, but I have my controls in between. So look at this. Let's show you. So here is that thing. Can you see it? So this is a run in Australia, right? And then you have the test with barcodes on them. See, right?
Yeah.
Can you see the barcode?
Yeah.
So, right.
That's my test. I can't believe it.
Nah, it couldn't be. You sent it to Australia. So then we have a newer machine in the UK, mate. So anyway, so you have 1, 2, 3, 4 tests, right? And then you take the 5th test, and that won't have a barcode on it. See? So, and then you go 1, 2, 3, 4 tests again. They're all the 4th test is with a barcode, right? So barcode. And then the 5th test here is without a barcode again. So this is natural seawater, right? So it's always seawater that we know exactly what. It's like a standard, like the standards, but it's natural seawater or a chemical standard. So what happens there is we know there's no lead in there. But if it shows up lead, then I know, all right, machine fucked it up. I will delete all the leads out of it. So I need to do the last bit of quality control to get rid of the background noise. Because as soon as you test so many salts together, you will have something going wrong from time to time, and then you don't need to redo the test. You just need the control to confirm, is everything okay? And we do that every 4 tests. That's pretty good, so you're really in a safe zone there. And we do that from the start. And this is even, people try to copy that too. But obviously, you need to know a lot about the method to understand what could go wrong and what's not. How the ability of this machine is very much depending on who made the method. And I know every mistake this machine can do. Like, I can go inside and rebuild that generator in there. It's no problem. I've done that already. There's pictures of it. But that's the truth. So you know your thing, you know your tool, and as better you know it, as better you can make it work. And it's all about aquariums. So it's not like I'm not doing this for the court, to sue somebody. I'm doing it just for you guys to get results and then be successful in an aquarium. That's
So
what
now
I mean.
sorry, Drip, you're in Australia now then. So so these are the sites you've got, yeah? These are the ICP labs that you've got set up. How do you ensure that the methodology that you're doing in Australia is done elsewhere consistently and accurately?
Because we have the machines
Cameras.
all linked to our server. So every day they deliver the results, then you have the controls in there. You have, what I mean? Like you do I do all the calibrations on the machines. So it's not like somebody else is still doing it. I have employees, let's say, they're my hands and my ears, and they start the machines. There are security things you need to be aware of, but everything else is still being carried out here. All the quality is carried out here. So if they come up and their salt water shows 0 salinity every test, like I would say, listen, what have you done? You know, so
Okay.
it's something like that. Or maybe every salt water is look a bit too much difference. There's too much difference between the tests, the standard tests. Then I would also say, hey, listen, we need to do this test again. Sometimes I do that. You don't realize, but it takes longer to receive the test. But it's because we have a second sample. We have 3 vials, right? One is for fluoride, and the 2 are for ICP, but we only test 1. And there is a spare one that if I say, listen, you fucked it up, do the test again, then they can do that spare test, and you won't even know. You know, so that's kind of the way it works.
From the second I empty or fill the vial up in my next to my tank to send, so the minute the water comes out my tank and into your vial, to the minute it arrives in your lab to be tested or whatever country I'm in, what potential elements would have changed in that 1 or 2 day shipping process from the time it's left my tank to the time it's arrived to you to test in your lab?
Not too much, because we atomize it. So what happens is your water runs into this super hot plasma that is like 10,000 degrees hot, and it's hotter than the surface of the sun. So you destroy all the molecules in there. You just leave atoms, and then that's called atomization. Then this stuff gets hot, so hot that it gets an energy unit more, and it gets a little colder and lose that as a light. So you kind of make them blink. Imagine that, right? So it's so hot they blink, and they all blink in different colors. So what you really do is you atomize it anyway. So this stuff can't go anywhere. It's in your, you know what I mean? Like phosphate is phosphate, like nitrogen, which we don't measure, is nitrogen. So it really can't go anywhere. But what can happen is you have, like, when you take it, you have a little bit of food in there. You know what I mean? Like when you feed the fish, then you just, there's stuff right on and you go and do it. That food can, decompose in that time, not 3 days, take a little longer, but that would then cause your phosphate to show higher, for example, because obviously, but also this stuff normally is then not in the second sample. You know what I mean? So you go to us, you say, hey, man, my phosphate is like 5,000. How could that be? And we say, nah, listen, we do the second one, and the second one, like, very rarely would have exactly the same amount of food in there. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things that are like that. But because you're not measuring any organics, no sugars, no stuff like that, it's pretty safe. So even weeks, it's still okay to test. In the beginning, we had 2 weeks lead time for America, for example, or Brazil. It still works. It's just one thing that you need to know. The repeat is your tank, when it's 2 weeks, right? Your tank has changed. You know what I mean? Like the tank water will have changed. So this is not changing in there, but your tank will have changed. That's why we try to deliver them fast. That's why we put a machine in the UK. That's why we put the machine in Brazil, just to have overcome that issue,
Yeah.
I've got a question.
Sorry, John, go on.
So you're based on what you just said there about a piece of food being present in the ICP vial. If I've always been really conscious about when I take my samples of water from clients' tanks, and it's all a bit tricky for me doing weekly maintenance. Is if I've got to turn up and I've got to change GFO, for example, but I don't rinse it. If I take a sample of water after I've changed the GFO and there's that brown sort of dust in the water, would that then show up as iron on the ICP?
No, because it's not dissolved. So it's very, that system that we have, there's an injection. So you kind of vaporize the water. There's a vapor going into the ICP. You can't just put it in there. It will distinguish the plasma. So you have a vapor going in there, and that vapor need to carry that iron, and it won't. It's just too heavy. So that stuff will just be filtered out, you can say, but which is not a physical filter, but it's just like a glass part that I can show you at one point. But aluminium, for example, is lighter and it goes into solution. So you will measure aluminium a bit more. But that's true. That's a true measurement because it will be dissolving in your tank. So in this tank, for example, I'm running Al99. I'm not sure if you see, like down there's a filter with Al99. And I have aluminium in this tank. which is realistic because it dissolves a little bit, But iron will precipitate. It just be red. It will sit in your sand forever. It just, nothing
So
happens.
could you then explain? So based on the help task desk on the ICP, it says that if you're running too much GFO or too aggressively, and I assume by that meaning that it's grinding away at each other,
Yes.
that you could see an elevated level of iron.
Yes, you could, because then they grind and maybe very fine, but then your level is really high. So you actually have a lot of that stuff around, but it is very unlikely. So what you have is when you overdose iron, that's when you see it. Or when you have iron in solution, for example, when you do a water change, a lot of this water change kind of these salts contain anti-caking solution. So it stays fine and nice and salty. Otherwise it would cake up like a real piece of rock, right? And that is iron. There's iron there. Iron cyanide. It's like a ferric, cyanide. Not dangerous, but it's real. Even if we eat it, so it's not dangerous. But that will show up in your tank as iron. But very rarely something that is having to do with your grinding too. Like it would be very rare. It is sometimes very rare, but very rare. Okay.
Can I just go back to salt for a minute, Ehsan? Because
Yes.
Liam was saying regarding the mixing. So this is going to be why. So Steve Fox jumped in there about the NIOS salt with the ICP scan code. So what you're saying then is, yeah, there's some spelling mistakes there from him. So yeah, we all know obviously the NIOS salt that's about. So that's the Triton tested then. Yes, that's a Triton ICP, and everyone is pretty much. There's some similarities, but they're obviously going to have individual levels based on what you've just been saying. So that's because of the mixing process. Is that right?
Yes. So they did that with us, but we're not doing it for them anymore. Just to let you know.
Oh,
so I don't know why they're still on there, but we're not doing it anymore. So that's ATI because they bought ATI, and then I guess that's ATI getting the treatment for them now.
Yeah.
But it's not Triton, right? And but when we did it, it was still really good salt. So I'm not going to say it was bad salt. That's a good salt. And they tried to figure out how to do it. They send in a lot of tests to us, and we do that. We do that for other companies because we don't have our own salt. Obviously there is salt around, so why do we don't need that? You don't need everything. So and that's a good salt, but it is. Maybe the mixing process is maybe the sourcing of the salt, so it's very much about that stuff. But like I said, salt is not a mystery, it's not like I did my own salt. I did it. I can mix my own. You guys can mix your own salt. It's very easy. It's not hard. And like I say, I'll send it to you. No problem. I'll send it to you. You look at it and it's like, oh, that's easy. And you put it together and you have the salt, mate. That's not hard. I actually do it for all the exporters here because they take seawater, but sometimes when it's raining a lot, then they have a very low salinity. So I gave them a little calculator that they can put in their sodium chloride levels, and then it just calculates the rest for them. They don't buy any salt like from hobby market anymore. It's just not needed.
Wow.
I've got another.
Go on, Sean.
I'll send it to you, Sean.
You just touched on natural seawater there. Does Triton still advocate setting up aquariums with natural seawater to begin with? And if that is the case, do you believe or feel or have any evidence that the natural seawater off the coast of the UK is in fact usable? After many, many years of testing lots of the biggest, should we say, trusted natural saltwater collecting companies, I'm yet to find one that I would want to put in an SPS reef.
I know that Vincent is doing it still. So you ask him. He's running it on his machine. I'm not sure. Maybe he stopped it. I really don't know. But for me, I use North Sea water from a specific place in the Netherlands, for example. Just went to the North Sea as far as I can get in. So it's about the rivers in Europe. So that current is gone from the south towards the north, right? So whatever you collect after a big river, maybe the Thames going in there, and it goes up, then that's really bad. But everything underneath it is really good. So the Rhine in Rotterdam hits the North Sea and it's going up. So I went underneath, and everything underneath is good water. That's the way I did it in Europe, because you have a lot of people and a lot of pollution, right? But yeah.
I think what I was kind of getting at was I've done ICP tests myself. I live in Bournemouth, so I'm not very far from the ocean at all. And if I was to do an ICP on there, there would be levels of copper. There would be very high elevated levels of iron. There would be sometimes
That's all the shopping trolleys, mate. That is.
and knives.
Yeah.
All right.
Basically, what I'm getting at is are those levels, and people are using that natural seawater. I completely don't agree that it's good. Some people say that it's fine. What do you think of that, or is it on an individual basis?
So look, if I go in detail, it is depending on what you find. So if you find copper, for example, it doesn't need to be the bad copper, because like I say, we atomize it, so we can only see copper in total, right? But if you use, for example, our detox, right, that product that is brownish and you put it in, that goes around the copper and bind it in a like a molecule. So the copper sits in the middle and then it's there. So now if you test this water, it will still be the same amount of copper because you atomize everything, so you find the copper again. But it's absolutely not destructive. It's absolutely not dangerous in that form because it can't do anything. It's like locked in, right? So what we do is then we use carbon to get this molecule out and the copper is gone, right? But even if it would be staying in there in this form, it's not dangerous. You know what I mean? So it could be that copper you measure is locked in humic acid, what it is, like detox. And because naturally we find that too. We have that stuff that we produce, detox, is out of the rivers here. So the rivers here carry a lot of brown stuff into the reef, and that's actually, we measure all these rivers. We measure the underneath, there's rivers underneath the ocean. They run, that's fresh water, and they come up as a well in the middle of the reef, 15 kilometers out. We call them wonky holes. It's awesome fishing there, Sean, awesome fishing, right? But that's crazy because Julian calls it the dosing pumps of the reef. So it's really like a dosing. It doses, it's fresh water, so it carries a lot of elements right into the reef. Like not at the coast. It's just, so you have like all these little things that you kind of need to still be understanding to then understand that stuff. And it's the same with your seawater. It could be not dangerous, but what I would really suggest is you go to a little bit of a deeper spot, drop in something at least 2 meter, 3 meter, 4 meter, even 5 meter deep if you can get it. And that water will look very different to the surface one, because surface water is always very, like the first 20, 30 centimeters, very different to what is underneath. Okay, so that works. This is the way I did it. Keep it coming from the deep. That's good. Okay?
Would you agree that everything we're speaking about in terms of ICP results and element levels is all relevant to the animals you choose to keep in your reef tank?
Correct. Yes.
Some corals, for example, can tolerate higher levels of one element than another.
Yes.
Invertebrates, clams can tolerate. It's all relevant to the animals you choose to keep in your aquarium.
Yes, we call that the habitats. So since I'm here, we're doing a lot of science, and that's why we need a boat on this habitat. So your corals in your aquarium, they're not coming from the same spot.
No, exactly.
They're not living in the same place. Like if you go, for example, Tracheophilia or all the LPS, a lot of LPS, they live in a mud. They live in mud, not on the rock. They live in the mud in the interreefal zone. So that's before I reach the reef. They'll be all there. Some of them are just next to the coast. Dirty. It's dirty. There's not a lot of light. It's greenish water. There's crocodiles and bull sharks. But then you go further out, when you over the edge, then there is like SPS, like microclados, like the strawberry shortcake.
Yeah.
Like a lot of them. And that's crystal clear water. You have marlin swimming around there and tuna, and you have like this coral. You know what I mean? Like it's a very different area, very different water. So based on the habitats, we have the habitats in there. That's years ago we put something up that you can choose your habitat, and then it will tell the ICP, our ICP will tell you what to do depending on that. And it's not that much, you know, the danger zones in an aquarium. If you do something wrong, sadly, you really much overdoing it. So this amounts of lead or copper, you will rarely find in a natural reef because that's so much water, right? But again, like not every coral will die if the copper level reaches 20. Then they bleach. Some will die, some will not even bleach, right? So, and it depends again on the type of copper and stuff.
One of the major issues or challenges there, when like you're saying you've got corals or whatever animal from different part, is people seem to forget that salinities are a hell of a lot different in a lot of these places that that they're found. For example, no brackish water, for example, being completely different to a reef.
Yeah, brackish water is absolutely different, but there is not really corals there. So what you have is, I have measured reefs from 32 to 38, even 40, but 40 is very harsh. So that's like the Red Sea area, some of the Red Sea areas. But that's the real area. And salinity is not as important as people might think for the corals. If it's dropping too low, then they will bleach. Like it happens here when it rains a lot, then sometimes, you know, some areas get too much fresh water, then you see all the corals bleach. But they recover. They don't die. Like a lot of them recover. When it's getting too hot, the same thing. But, you know, I would say 32, you're still fine. You know, 32 to 38, that's kind of the range that I have measured in reefs, which they still looked okay. But 35 is the most common one. 35 PSU, stick to it. You're in a safe zone with every coral. You know, that's what you're trying to do, because you can't do this. You can't have one tank and put all this coral in there and then have a 32 and a 38 and then go 38, and the 32 will suffer. So that's kind of the 35 is a really good sweet spot for that. Yeah. Okay.
We've got a couple of questions from the audience again, some of which we've already covered, but I will shout them out because people have obviously asked. I know you can't probably give us names of some of your competitors.
Of course you can.
But so Scubby's Reef you're saying that companies like Oceano, when they advertise ICPMS, is it not accurate what they're advertising? So any thoughts on that?
I don't know what they're advertising, but you know, if they say, yeah, the ICPMS is 1,000 times more like accurate or let's say sensitive than this machine, you compare the machines, they're actually saying the right thing. It's true. But like what I'm saying is, this is not the issue. The issue is when you take the sample, you cause so much error that this is not going to be measurable 1,000 times less than that. So you can't use that information. It's not fit for purpose anymore. So you take it, you send it, the machine will be able to go that low, but the guy that is doing the quality control need to see the error and say, oh, okay, I measured 0.000001 cobalt, but the error of cobalt is 1 microgram, so I need to deliver a 0. But if they don't do that...
And would you, sorry to put in, and would you get a lack of detection on that example? As a
you
user?
could have a lucky detection, that's one thing. But also imagine, just have an understanding of that. You know, look at calcium, a very important element in an aquarium. Okay, just to make that understand, or phosphate. So now, let's say you go and measure and you go, because we talked about chasing numbers, right? So phosphate, 0.018. Okay, good area. So is it important if it's 0.0181 or 0.182? Is that really your focus? You know, is that really something you would measure and try to get that microgram, you know, that little picogram up or down? Is it possible for you to do that in an aquarium like that? How much water is in your aquarium, Tom? Exactly.
300 litres.
to the milliliter.
Oh, exactly. I'm not going to know. I ain't got a clue, have I?
If you want to go 0.00001 and change that to 2, you would need to know that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's really
Yeah.
practically not making sense at all. And it's not making sense for your corals. There's no difference for them if it's that little bit more or less. It's more arranged. So you go, is cobalt available or is chromium available? Is zinc available? It doesn't matter if it's 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Just that
It
it's
doesn't
there.
need to be 20, but if it's available, your corals will be fine. They have what they need. The same kind.
Yeah.
The zinc is a very good one because that's a battery for your enzymes. And that's the way you look at it. And if you look at it that way, you just overcomplicate things if you go MS. That's what it is. Whatever he advertises, it doesn't matter. It's just a practical thing, you know?
Right.
And as an aquarist, you will understand that very quickly. You know, it's just not chasing numbers there.
Ehsan,
Not that low.
I've got another quick. Sorry, Tom. I know you said you've got other people, but as a hobbyist, right? So if you take yourself as for example, you know, put yourself in my shoes. I am not going to do an ICP every week. Okay.
He don't want to do that. Sorry, he don't want to put himself in your shoes at all, Ehsan.
I mean,
No,
he'd have more.
I'm in your shoes. I'm in your shoes right now, mate. Go.
You lucky man. You lucky man.
Yeah, he's probably not wearing anything under where he's sat though, Ehsan. So don't copy that. Let's leave it there. Yes.
Well, of course I'm not. Melinda's in the chat. Of course I'm not. So I'm not going to do an ICP every single week. Okay.
Yes.
So I might do one a month, right? I might do one every 6 weeks. Okay. So in your opinion, what is a good test kit, home test kit for a hobbyist that is fairly accurate, that you could keep an eye on week to week? For example, I test 3 times a week. I've gone away from automated I've gone back to Salifert, right? I've gone back just to basics. Okay. So what, in your opinion, is a good test kit for people like us who might only do an ICP once a month, but want to log their results throughout that month in between their ICPs?
Something that is very uncomplicated for you as a reef keeper. The one that works with you the best is the best for you. So the one that you use when you come home from work and you're tired and you still do it. The one that is not, that's super complicated, that it's like, oh, I'm coming home, I get a beer and then I go to sleep. I don't want to even test it anymore. It's too much work. That's the worst one. So it's not about the liquids in there. It's not about how, you know, how many, it's all marketing, you know, how many, whatever you get, right? And how expensive it is. It's all liquids. These liquids are strongly controlled because you can't sell to a hobbyist super hardcore acid, for example, right? So they are kind of very limited in what they can sell you. So they kind of make up nice packaging and stuff. Don't go for that. I always went Salifert. Very simple, not expensive. Tetra was the one that I used for KH, just to let you know, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 KH go, right? If you go like, okay, let's list it up. That's the one that doesn't work because you don't do it. That's the only thing, you know. It's really nothing else about it, man.
Have you ever heard of the alkalinity Salifert test kit being quite out?
Yeah, it is. Listen, all of them are quite out. I've seen calcium tests showing 100 minus a plus, whatever. It's like it's the way it is. But when you find the one that is kind of in the zone for you, you can use that one, and it's fine. I think you get a feeling for it, you know.
I think more for hobbyists like us, when you've got someone like yourself on, I think the most damning question for me is to say, Ehsan, what home test kit do you trust? Not it's the easiest, because you could have one that is not even anywhere remotely accurate, but it's the easiest. So I'll use that. Well, I'm not getting I think my tank is something that it's not. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. To be successful, I don't trust any of them.
Okay.
Right? So what I do is I've got a really, trust is a very complicated thing for me. I do a lot of things so people trust me and my brand. A lot of things, like moving to Australia, move my whole family, do my stuff, you know, just doing this lives and everything. And I deserve my trust, right? But there's a test kit sitting in a box somewhere on a shelf, and I grab it and I test it. That's not deserving my trust, right? So what I do is I test it and I test it one more time. And I just, and then maybe I check it one time against my ICP that I trust, maybe, you know what I mean? Like something like that. And then you work your way towards this being a good tool for you to use. You need to have that understanding of all these things are tools, and you need to be able to use them in a proper way, like a hammer. I mean, give you a hammer to your 4-year-old kid, mate. I mean, that's maybe not the best idea, you know? Like, so this is kind of the way you do it. You get a bit of experience with it, and it works. I trusted Salifert, but then I had Salifert test kits that are showing wrong results too, you know? And it's not like I'm going to, okay, I'm testing it again. And I want you to guys to understand, when we deliver a result, again, I watched over it, every single one, but you still are able to call us and say, hey, listen, I know this is really strange, right?
Yeah.
But can you retest? And we'll do that. We retest it, because if we can't find it, you know, if I look at it and it's all the tests showing kind of the same thing, I'll maybe say, no, it's correct. But then you are sure it's correct. But otherwise, we retest it, you know?
Okay,
That's
mate.
the same thing with yourself. Okay?
Yeah.
If you
Sorry.
what would be seen to be the best or most accurate test kit, I mean, I've done quite a bit myself. I do probably 10 ICPs a month, and I've used the same brand of test kits for the last 8 or 10 years. And I find them to be pretty accurate, to be fair. But so I can tell you those if you want.
Go on.
Yeah. Which one is that?
I use the Tropic Marim KH Pro for alkalinity, which goes down in 0.1 increments. It's very similar to the Salifert, but it gives you a better scale. It's easier to work with. I use the NIOS calcium test kit, the NIOS magnesium test kit, and they come out pretty well within a tolerance of plus or minus 15% with the Triton ICP, and that's what I've always used.
I know where they're made, because these companies do not make them, right? So I'm not sure about Tropic Marin, but I'm pretty sure about the other one. And you know, because people, you know, we are producers, but we, for example, don't produce the aluminium 99, right? I don't have an aluminium mine, you know, to produce it, or we don't produce the carbon. We buy it, we test it, we sell it, right? All the other products, a lot of other products, like all the bottles and stuff, we do on our own. But that's not a given thing in this industry. In this industry, a lot of people work OEM. That means that they go to another company and they say, can you produce this for us? And they will produce it, put your brand on it and sell it. And that's why we had an issue with the carbon in the UK, for example. And we saw it in other brands then too, which heavily, a lot of stuff was in there. Barium, there was a clear fingerprint, and I did a video about that. But then, and warned the people about it. But the thing is, that was all produced in the same spot, you know, but it was multiple brands. So it's not the brand that was causing that, because they don't produce it anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you need to also be aware of that. Even if you buy or trust something, DP, it might be you trusting that brand, but that brand is not even producing it. You know, like this is kind
marketing
of
again that you said earlier.
And that was the point I was making as a hobbyist who is not a scientist and who wants to know what they're, you know, we all put a lot of time, effort, and money into our animals. Do you know what I mean? So you I would hope you want to do the best by them. So trying to monitor and trying to fix and adjust or whatever, that reference point that you're starting at has to be trusted, don't it? Because I ain't got no other option.
Yeah, true. And then when you do an ICP, you're kind of in the ballpark, do your test against it when you ship it. And then you just look at it. Maybe, you know, next time do another test to see which one works for you, like Sean's doing, you know? I mean, you don't have another chance, mate. It's not professional stuff. Like tell you can't buy the professional try.
I think a lot of it, don't be lazy. I think that is what I'm getting in a roundabout way. Do you know what I mean? Don't just take one thing as that is exactly what it is.
Look, Dippy, there is a lot of misinformation or unknowns or things that people don't talk about in this industry, which inhibits your success. Okay, so I see a copper band in your back swimming all the time there. It's good fish, right? But this fish, okay, is not hard to keep. A lot of people think they're hard to keep, but they're not. They're not hard to keep. The problem is that are caught with cyanide, right? So I had one, and you think you need to feed them a lot. You don't need to feed them a lot.
Sorry to cut you off. I've
Sorry?
had this conversation over the last couple of weeks with a very reputable store owner, and once again yesterday, learning about the dark arts of certain things, one of which you are explaining now.
Yeah. So a lot of people won't know that. They would think it's their fault. I've not feed enough. I've not done this. I have one copper band. I had the marginalis, the one from the west coast, right?
Yeah.
The one that misses the band, one
Yeah.
band. And it was this size, and it was silver, and it was beautiful in my old tank. And it was eating everything. It just really eats everything. There's no point. There was not. I wasn't feeding too much. I have antias, but I would normally, yeah, you can see them here, right? But normally I would just, get them to feed, and then I'll feed once a day. That's it. And this thing survived in my tank for ages, and at one point was so big it went into the big clam and started eating the gills of the clam. So I need to get rid of it. Right? But that's kind of the reality. On the other hand, people start, oh no, you're not feeding too much. You're not doing this. It's just misinformation. And it is blaming you, and you blame yourself because you think you did something wrong, but it's not true, right? So a lot of things are like that, and you need to just be aware of it. And as soon as you're aware of it, you get more successful because you don't trust everybody, everything. You know what I mean? Like, this is just not a controlled area, and that's a bit of a problem, And it is with testing the same thing. It is with amino acids the same thing. And, it's always like, if you look at it a bit more deeply, you'll understand bacteria will not survive sitting on the shelf for 6 months in a bottle, right? So what do I add into my tank? Is it really bacteria? So it's just like you know what I mean? Like, think about it that way. It helps you a lot, believe me. Right? I mean, okay, I'm possibly the most skeptical guy in the reef keeping industry because I tested my tank water with that thing there, but this is kind of the way it works, if you want to be successful, right?
Can I just jump into the comments, guys, and answer some of these questions that people are asking? I threw it up a second ago. So Amanda was asking regarding the ICPs then, Ehsan, does the plastic vial react with the water sample whilst it's in transit?
Sorry, what was the question?
Does the plastic vial react with sample water in transit when it comes to an ICP sample?
No, it won't. But there is some elements like tin, for example. They like to glue on things. We call them gluey elements, like tungsten and stuff. They glue on the surface of it. So if you don't use the whole vial, then you kind of could miss out on them, So this is why we always try our method to have a lot of liquid going into it. But you don't know that of any other ICP or how they do it. I don't know. But this is kind of the reality. But they won't actually react in a way that they release something. They're made to not do that. Right? So it's sample vials. Okay?
Yeah. No, thank you for that. Morning, Jamie. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're good. A few other people talking to each other. If you have got any questions for Ehsan, please throw them in the comments, as I've already said. Steve's saying, and everything I buy from my tank to my fishing tackle, I buy a brand from a company that I know if there is ever an issue, they will fix it, not just bluff you off. And that's the main thing for me. Yeah. I use Salif KH for 7 years, keep my alkalinity at 7.7. I get a HANA checker and it's telling me my alkalinity was 6.3.
Well, if you are to believe ACI aquaculture, that is probably true. Because Chris thinks that they're 1 DK out, Salifat, don't he? Do you remember him saying that?
Yeah, he said he thinks they're about 1 out.
It's more that with a test kit like that, you know what you measure with alkalinity, you measure pH. You can't. Alkalinity is a proxy. It's not a real thing. Like you like to measure what we measure with the NDOC, inorganic carbon. That's the real value you want to measure. But you can't, so you measure something else, and it's easier to measure. So when you do that, you add acid into the sample, then the sample turns acidic. That's what you measure the pH at 4.3 or something, and then okay, that's equivalent to whatever DKH I might have. So the buffer. So these systems will always have 1 DKH error, plus, minus. So you better just aim for 7. You might be on 6, which is still okay, or 8, or you aim for 8 and you might be on 7 or 9. That's the reality of things.
If you have a suppressed pH for whatever reason, are you always? Is it more beneficial to run a higher alk?
Well, your alkalinity buffers your pH. So if you can use the buffer system in a bit of more advanced way, so maybe add carbonates instead of bicarb, it's got very chemical, then you can adjust it. It's more about what you really use for your supplementation. So when you use core 7, you're high anyway, because you are carbonate based, so you go really high. It's good. It's very good for your tank. When you have a calcium reactor, it's the opposite. You add CO2 kind of, but runs in there, and then you end up with a lower pH. But this is not a really big deal because a lot of people get used to this very quickly. There's a lot of things you can do, especially on the carbonate side of things. Nowadays, people have a party and then there's a lot of CO2 in a room, and that's obviously having an effect on your pH drop. In the past, you wouldn't even measure that because nowadays you have all these measurements that measure it all the time, but back then you would not even know, so
Yeah.
it's kind of not that bad, I wouldn't get crazy about it.
DC Reefing's asking a question which I wanted to talk to you a little bit about because we've kind of gone all over, which I knew we would anyway, regarding Triton. One of the biggest sort of mechanisms with Triton, again going back to when I first got in reefing, was the refusion, concept. Yeah. Which can we see behind you for a minute? Do you mind? Is that all right? Give us a bit of a tour. Yeah, that's it. Okay, wow. So what is in there at the minute? Cheetomorpha?
Yeah, Cheetomorpha is the big one, and there's a bit of Caulerpa growing on it already. See that?
Yeah.
So it will grow. It will be mostly Caulerpa right now, but it will. I guess it will be a bit more mostly Cheetomorpha right now, but it will be Caulerpa at one point, in my opinion.
So that question then from DC Reefing regarding the refugium, can I run Triton without a fuge as I have no room in the sump, skimmer and reef mat and live rock?
That's going to be hard. So what we've done is we created this method that is holistic. So we cover everything. We cover the filter for you, all the exports, we cover the imports. So that's the only way to make you error-free, and that's why this is so successful, or able to actually make that refugium the 10% more effective, or more even than that, to leave out the water change, right? So if you're kind of not doing that, we can still help you, but it is not the real Triton method. So you end up being some other method, and trying to implement the parts of the Triton method that you can use, which is still good, Still doing ICP testing is better than not doing ICP testing. Still doing, the trace elements that are singly added. It's still better than not doing that and make it, mix into your aquarium. But it is not the full Triton method. So a lot of parts will not maybe work like in this tank. So you can see this fish. I don't know if you know what this fish is. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Very low, 90-meter deep Anthias, right? Very, very rare. And you can keep them because I can feed this tank like crazy because that thing just takes all the nutrients out for me, right? But if I do not have that, I might not be able to keep this fish, with the corals later on, right? So it's just like, how far do you want to go and how much do you reach, right? You'll be fine leaving some part out, and you can be still super, super successful. But these tanks that we create, they are like beyond something that normally people would do. 100% full Triton is like the Mexican guy, Juan Gabriel. That's 100%. It's all over the place, aquapro grown on the glass, right? So that's a similar tank, right? But you can go 80%, and then you'll be 80% successful. Maybe it's enough for you, I'm totally messed up. I'm doing this since I'm 12 years old. For me, a white coral with round spots looks good, but for a lot of people, they were like, I'm not even buying this stuff,
Yeah.
So it's kind of understand that a bit. Okay?
Could DC Reefing, do you still class a refugium with an algae reactor being run Would that suffice if
Yeah.
he didn't have the footprint maybe for him?
That would be good. That would be good.
To
At
give-
least,
What
or
about
a turf
scrubbers?
scrubber. A turf scrubber will work too.
Yeah, yeah.
Not so good, but still enough. They'll work too.
Can I just ask, Ehsan, what else, other than nutrients, what else would you say the refugiasm is extracting from your what elements from your refugiasm?
So-
Yeah, I don't know where.
That's a good word. I need
Yeah.
I need some refugiasm with you sometimes.
I'm gonna patent that word, and no, you can't nick it, Ehsan. Sorry, mate, that's mine.
Yeah, all right. It's yours, mate. It's yours. I'll ask next time. I'll
Thank you,
ask.
thank you.
So it's not
Happy
that
years, man.
much what it extracts, but it can extract heavy metals too. That's proven. Macroalgae can take heavy metals, and they do that. But it's not only that. Mostly, it actually gives something back. Right? So when you create a life support system like we did in a holistic way, and this is the only existing one in reef keeping, just to let you know, everything else is just put together, right? This is the only one that exists like it is like now. If you do that, you can choose to go either filtration only, or you go the next step. That's recycle. Recycle is better than filtration. So when you can put waste in or create waste here, and then run it down there, and it recycles to get food and goes up again and eaten and then waste, that's the best way of filtering a tank. And that's what Triton does. So what happens down there is there's a lot of little critters because there's no fish, there's no sand, there's just these little critters. They're eating all the food you put in that runs in there will be eaten before it reaches the skimmer. You know what I mean? So it just, because it runs in here first, then it goes to the skimmer, right?
Yep.
So before that, they will be eating that stuff. Before that, you will have a whole area, a refugium, right? Like a refugee camp, let's say, something like that, that for little critters. And
And in there you have what, pods?
Yeah, you have everything. Oh, in my old tank up, I was harvesting it, and these things just start stinging me. Like like in the ocean, there's like little lice. They sting you. I had everything in there. I had Triton everywhere, just crazy. And that's what you get. You get a recycled kind of system, and that's what you want because that's the best thing you can have. There's not anything better than that, right? You can work with CO2 filters in the orbit. That's fine. But if you could use the CO2 to generate O2, it will be better. And that's what we do kind of here. We try with everything to kind of evolve it a little bit, but we need to stick to this framework to be successful for our customers, right? But that's the reality of things. So you think the wrong way. We don't only do this to extract. We actually try to give back. That's the main thing.
So you've got your,
it won't work with the algae turf scupper though. That's not working that well. But
you've got your biological filtration then going into your mechanical filtration before it goes back into the tank.
yeah, we really do try not even to mechanical filter if you have. We don't have any filter socks or anything. We just have the skimmer, and that's because without the skimmer, it's just very hard to get rid of phosphates and stuff in an organic form. So we need that skimmer. But otherwise, I would try to even go without a skimmer, but that's not working.
Well, my experience with Triton was great for, I think it was about a year. I think I ran it on one of my first systems, year or two. But the issue I started to have, which Matt Norfolk Reefers asked, is I was obviously on this ICP train in terms of looking at certain elements, and you wanted the green light or amber, you didn't want reds, obviously, traffic light system. And there was a lot of talk about the refugium itself stealing a lot of the traces from your tank, such as iron. Yeah? What's your take on that then?
That's true. That's absolutely true. The refugium takes a lot. And people do not understand what we do. So we have a product, 4/7 or infusion, right? And that's not for the tank up here. Not only, little bits, but not only, right? It's more for the algae. So to make an algae grow, there's more needed than just nutrient. Okay, so what you now do is you feed what the algae needs, you add what that filter takes, the carbon and the Al99, they only take phosphate or dirt, they'll take good stuff too, like iodine, like fluoride, they will take, like if it's good stuff, you just do it for example, right?
Yeah.
And then the schema, and then it goes now. Right? So what you need to do to create a baseline when you do ICP testing on a tank like that, and then understand what do you need to do for your corals, is you need to feed them. So what we did is we fixed it. We know the amounts of filter you can use. We know that you need to use 10 to 20% refugium. So we can add this into these bottles in a logical way, right? And then you add it and you have that sorted. All zero. When the water comes up there, it's always the same, even if you have filtering yourself. Then you do an ICP test, and depending on your corals, you will be measuring the uptake of your corals, not the uptake of that, because that's covered already. And that's why I called it the base elements, because it creates that baseline in your tank. Do you understand what we do? It's very different to anybody else because they don't fix this. And this problem that we have went very much against us. So all our competition, they say, you're free, do whatever you want, and then add this stuff and it will make your tank. But there's no logic behind that. Without knowing exactly what this is using, you're not able to put any trace elements in a solution that makes sense because nobody knows what corals you keep. I'll look at yours, Tom, or at yours. Sorry, Matt, was Drippy.
Drippy.
So, yeah. So
It's been called far worse.
Yeah.
And I am very forgetful, so don't worry.
Sorry, thank you, Drippy. So there are very different corals in that tank. You know, so there's even different fish in that. You will have feeding because of the copper bands. You don't have that. So how could you mix a liquid and say 10 mil of this stuff goes into that tank and it's fine? And what is your filtration? It will be totally different too. They will take different things. So that's why it will not work that way. It's only working this way. But people said this is chaining you, like you're in a cage of Triton. That's what marketing does. This will kind of, you need to do it this way. You need to do it this way. It's so bad. Just go free. But that's not, that's what we did all the time. But
unless you come on things like this and the people watching get to hear your explanations, right? Like you said before, education is everything, right? We all have full-time jobs, right? I'm guessing most of us. Do you know what I mean? So to understand why Triton is the way it is everything. It's not looking at Triton and says, oh, well, Triton says it's that then, so I should be doing... You know, if you need to take... For example, I have a question, because ICP testing does fascinate me a little bit, right? So I haven't done or ever done a Triton ICP, right? That might change in the future, right? But, for example, when you're talking about iron or any other element, if I asked you, if I did a Triton ICP and it comes back, what is the range that you say my iron should be?
It's just written in the back of it, and it depends on where your corals are coming from. So you choose a habitat, and then this will change.
So that was my point, because you don't know what animals I have in my tank, right?
Exactly.
So what is your range of iron based off that I should have in my reef tank? Is it off the reefs in the ocean?
Of a lot of things. So first off, it is about all the data that we have collected in aquariums over the years, right? And then we did a lot of work on the Triton method, because the Triton method is also a standard. So this is a standard system. All Triton method things look like this, right? It makes it super easy to understand what will vanadium affect, because you can't do it with one tank. I'm sorry, that's not scientific. Like you just do it with my tank, and it's like, okay, I put vanadium in, this happens, vanadium does that. That's not the way it works. We need to do it with thousands of tanks. Right? So 1,000 tanks that are running the same way, then you will have 5 of them overdose vanadium on 7. And, 3 of them underdose, and so on. And you go and look, are the 7 reacting all the same? Is there one mistake? This is the way you do science. And that's what's helping me to do that. So first off, we have that. Nobody else has that for over 15, 17, whatever years now, right? We have this. Then we came here, went to the ocean, checked the ocean, because you don't find extremes in the ocean, but you will find places that are different to others. So you find that place, you measure that place. You look at the mud. We measured mud. I'm measuring fish poo. Linda, there's a video where Linda's swimming behind that's pretty new, behind the parrotfish. and they poo, and then we collect it because we want to know what's in the pool, right? So you find these things, and then you go step by step, search for them, look at the area, make a picture, make a video. There's a lot of things coming up right now to just look at. But that's the only way to do it. And I'll tell you, if you think people know what trace element does, like, listen, all the measurements we did, right? All the work we did, this is what you do with your other ICP. If you do another ICP, all the set points are our set points. I'll tell you now. And you can tell me whatever set point there's always our set points. Because nobody there went to do the work we did. Why should they? They buy an ICP, then there is set points by us. Why should they do the set points again? They will find the same set points. You know what I mean? But why?
Yeah.
So nobody's doing it. They all just take it. But the evolution comes from doing it on your own. And that's what we do here, right? So realistically, it is based on a lot of things that we know are practical in a reef tank. So zinc, you won't find that much out there. But in a reef tank, it's really good to have a little bit of zinc in there. That's why our set points is 4 to 5, right? But phosphate, for example, is very different from the zones. So when you go phosphate close to the shore, it's higher than the phosphate out in the reef, in the very clean zone. So you will see these differences when you give me your habitat. That's the first step.
I think that's quite important.
Yeah, definitely.
It is very important. And when you reach the coral area, so like which coral really needs what, that's something that maybe my son will tell you. My dad gave up on it. He said, like, you will never find out. There's so many corals, mate. I'm sorry. They don't even know. They right now found that tenuis is not tenuis. It's 3 species. So
Yeah.
it's just such a, and you don't believe that anybody knows that. Like, this is just not the real thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So realistically, habitat's a very good thing. You choose your habitat. What we say is pretty much spot on.
Well, that's interesting to know that.
And you compare. If you want to compare yours and do one of mine, and then compare the set points, And if it's just 1 microgram difference, that's no difference. If they're not saying you need an iodine of 300 and we say 60, then that's no difference. You know what I mean? If they come with 61, that's no difference, right? So it's just like the reality of things.
Well, I asked them questions based on the responsibility of you guys to advise me on what to add, what to take away, blah, with the time, effort, and money I put in or we put into our tanks in our houses. Do you know what I mean?
That's why I'm saying I'm earning your trust, Grippy. I make our own aquarium. I had an own aquarium in the middle of Germany with a 1 meter clam in there. Everybody can come and visit. We couldn't close the shop. Everybody comes, have a look, go home. If your company you're using, exactly, if they're doing the same thing, I accept that. That's fine. But I don't see anybody doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just talk. It's just talk. If it's just talk,
I think transparency breeds trust, in my opinion. Do you know what I mean?
yes.
Can we have a look at the tank behind you, if you wouldn't mind?
What,
Is that
my one?
possible? Yeah, not yours, Ehsan. We just want to have a look at Drippy's. I'm joking. We do. Of course we do.
Sorry,
of course we do. Yeah, we're here. Let's have a look. Show us round, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Now, how big are we?
Now, dark and dirty. There's not much in there now. All the sand is gone and stuff. So we're still building it to see everything is open, right?
What size is that?
Actually show you this. Huh?
What size is that tank?
2 meter 40 to 1 meter 20. So
Nice.
it's kind of the same size I had before, but if you look at it this way, like it's a bit dirty, still
Very
dirty.
nice.
It's running in. So what I'm doing right
Nice.
now is I have all this little antis from the deep sea, and I'm trying to get them feeding. But it's good time to do it now. A lot of people think, that's another thing that will make you very successful if you're planning a tank. Is what do I want to keep in there, right? So a lot of people think that you kind of put the antis in at last because that's a professional fish and kind of hard to keep and stuff. But if you do that, then it's really hard to feed them on getting on food because you need to overfeed it and then you risk your corals. So what I do is I get my antis beforehand so I can feed the tank like crazy and there's no corals in there. That's pretty easy. That's what I'm doing right now. And obviously next week I'm going to Orlando to have that talk in the Reeferpalooza. And I'll show some of the tank too. But that's what we're at now. We're at this tank right now. When I'm back, I will start to add some more fish, just to get the biological filtration going. and then, so there's not too much to show. I'll show you the pumps though, because it looks like.
Oh, go on then. Let's have a look.
Here. Can you see the pump unit? So
Oh,
there's
wow.
that's panterized. They're enclosed.
Rob,
So what happens?
Rob will be coming in his pants about now.
Oh, definitely.
So
Yeah.
that pump, there's like a rotating thing in here, right? Like a typical rotor pump, right? And it pumps the water up here, and then it turns around and sucks it out from here, and then pumps it all the way on the ground, then it pumps it up here, and they're covered. Actually, you can't see them, but there's outlets in this little bommies, right? And then they pump it all the way back there. So it's pretty good. I never had them before because they weren't available. Yeah, but it's a good pump. I like it. I really like it. It's expensive though.
We have a member of the Reefers Network who I can't thank enough, who was also in the comments, Reef Rondo, or Ron, as everybody knows him as. He runs his own, he's got a Discord, and they have a section of tank tours of people around the world. Would you be prepared to come on another time with us and have another chat about your tank and go to detail with us? Is that all right? Well, if Ron gets in touch with you. So Ron will send you an email and an invite and look at diaries, calendars, etc. That'd be cool. Thank you ever so much. Wouldn't be right without asking you.
I'm doing so my talk at Reefer Palooza will be the only talk that is live streamed. So it is, I think it's 12 o'clock in Orlando. That might be still a good time for you guys in the UK too. That's next Sunday.
What date? Sunday. Sunday.
Yeah, next Sunday evening time. We definitely go and show it. I'll have a video coming out with them. But they kind of, because I'm an international speaker, the only one they have, they kind of try to get some attention with it. But it's pretty good, So you could even ask me questions. Julian will sit there, run the live, and then he will grab the mic and ask questions too, as soon as they're kind of through. Okay, just to let you know.
Talking about questions, I think we've got 10 minutes left. We could squeeze a quick game in before the end, Drip, don't you think? To finish off with a bit of a high Easter weekend?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right then. Okay, so over to you, Drip.
Okay, Mr. Dashti, are you ready, sir? You don't want to know. So we have a saying, or I have a saying. If there is something that is absolutely a no-no, I would use a phrase that is, I would rather eat my... For example, I would rather eat my own teeth than eat Marmite. Okay, I don't like Marmite.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Right, yeah. So I have a game that is circle...
Vegemite.
Yeah. Vegemite.
In certain areas.
I wouldn't even eat it off Melinda, put it that way. But we have a game where we have a series of questions and you must answer, I would rather eat my own teeth than. Okay?
And you have to honestly.
Let me get prepared for this because we have 9 o'clock now here. So okay. Go.
Listen, it won't take long. You're an honest man, so I'm gonna guess that you're gonna be extremely honest with your answers. Here we go. There you go.
I would rather eat my own teeth than use.
Oh, by the way, reefing related, unfortunately.
Oh yeah. All right. Then use bacteria.
Oh, wow. Okay. And can you explain why? Any explanation on that?
Oh, I think I cut it a bit. So I don't really believe that there is any bacteria solution that would really help my tank in that case. Like I'm loving live rock. I think that's the best biome you can.
You mean regarding nutrients?
Yeah, I don't believe in bacteria. I don't believe in bacteria in bottles standing in a shelf for 6 months and then be alive and do something in my tank. I'm sorry, I don't believe that. So there is definitely bacteria. I had it actually in the morning life. I believe in bacteria for the sewage system. They make bacteria, they produce them, they use them, and they clean up our wastewater. But in that complicated system here, I'm not doing that. Or maybe antibiotics too. I'm not doing that too. Both antibiotics and bacteria.
Cool. Right. Thank you very much. Next one for you. I'd rather eat my own teeth than buy.
Can't use the same answer.
Then buy. Yeah, which simple. Buy reefing related. A roller mat.
Ooh.
Nah. Just I think it's pretty much, for me, it's a waste of money. It's just like, because I mean, you know, a tank like that, the TRITON method, do not even use filter socks, because what happens is you take all these particles away, then nothing biological will ever come up to eat them. So you actually inhibit your biological system to clean up your tank. So what we do is we wait a little bit, and as soon as there's particles in the water, there will be something filtering them out. You know, my whole rear box will be filled with filtering organisms, all this little, you know, spongy things, or all the worms that are, you know, they eat. And that's actually something beautiful sometimes just looking a bit strange, but they do the job. And if you do not let that happen, they will never have come up. Biologically, it's called the fox and the rabbits, right? So if you don't have the rabbits, the fox will never come. You know, so it's kind of that situation. That's why.
I know what Drip is thinking with that comment, so we'll move straight on.
No, I was actually going to say one of the main reasons I gave up filter socks initially was because when I went to clean them out, the amount of my crustaceans, i.e., pods, that were trapped in there, you know, they're obviously extremely beneficial for my reef, and the amount that would get caught and trapped in there, and then trying to get them out, and it was a nightmare. So that was the main reason actually I gave up filter socks.
Yeah, and the filter mat will actually roll them into the roll thing and just
They're gone.
They're gone.
Next one then. There you go. I'd rather eat my own teeth than sell. So what's your prized reefing possession?
Barium.
Or most prized?
I bet it's a skimmer.
So you mean I wouldn't sell, right? What I would not sell. Yeah, barium. I would never sell barium. Never. It's absolute nonsense. Rubidium same.
No,
there's a lot of
no. Possession.
You're as in a possession you own.
I bet it's his skim.
Like something like my car.
Most valuable.
Okay,
Yeah.
I gotcha. Yeah.
A reefing possession.
Like I would, yeah. But I sold my clam, so right now it would be this Antius maybe. But wait until this tank is done, then I can answer this question better.
Okay.
Do you know what? Just quickly, right? I was going to ask you this. You just reminded me. You said you'd never sell rubidium, right? I watched, funnily enough, I went round Tom's last summer and we was watching a reputable YouTube company with a live stream channel, and they had a chemist on there who was pushing how important rubidium is for a reef.
Yeah. It's great. And I'll do that same thing, and I'll tell you how important uranium is and plutonium is. There's a whole list in this machine that I can sell you.
Yeah.
Why is rubidium so important? Why? Who said that? Why?
I forget his name.
Which coral?
Funny enough,
is it measuring it?
Funny enough, I think he was German as well.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't mind. Whatever. People want to sell you stuff, man. People want to sell you stuff.
Yeah. And I think you get wise to that. The longer you stay in this hobby, you get quite wise to that.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So next one, a few more. I'd rather eat my own teeth than take advice from.
Oh yes.
Oh, come on.
Always a good one. This one.
Oh, that's hard.
Is it Sean?
He can't actually hear us. He's having some sound issues again, unfortunately. But we're ready to wrap up in a minute.
I would say now this is hard, but I would say I can't say that.
Yeah, you can.
Oh, nearly.
Yeah, you can.
I wanted to say my dad, but
okay,
that's because of the tank. Like I wouldn't take advice for the tank from my dad.
Anyone in the industry that you wouldn't take advice from, Ehsan? Seems as you're a man of honesty.
Nah, that's going to be bad. Nah, I would say Julian Baggio, because out of politics, that's fine. That's my partner here, so it's okay.
All right, okay.
All right.
Right then, just a couple more. I'd rather eat my own teeth than admit to the other half I paid.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah,
Does she
well,
watch these? She won't watch this one.
yeah,
We're not big enough.
She'll definitely see this though. Oh, that's hard, mate. Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, there was a fish I kept, and she doesn't know I paid for it how much, but there was a South African Antia, which I think I was the only one keep one in Europe, and I had a pair, and I even paid no money for that, but I paid in product, but a lot of product. Let's say that.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything? Are you gonna give us any number?
Yeah, I think it was like well in the, 30 grand area.
What?
Yeah.
Holy moly! Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
I think there was these two fish, and then there was one more. But
You missed that. You missed that, Drippy.
I think three. There were three fish though. There's two antis and three. But it's a very rare fish, So yeah.
And was that 30 grand for the pair?
Yeah, but it's nothing. To be honest, there's a fish here right now at Cairns Marine. They have 6 of them, and each one is 30 grand. Each one from the exporter. I play. That's a little like this size fish. It's black and white. It's beautiful fish, but I mean it's expensive. That the king guy, whatever you want to call it in English, it was 60 grand back then. That's a fish from South Africa. Just 60 grand for one fish. Like there's expensive fish around. Interrupters, super expensive. Some of the I have one fish here that is the type of the fish that would be super expensive from Japan. Oh, I don't think you can even buy that one. It's super, super expensive. Okay, but I've never had them wife. It was never them.
Yeah.
It could be worse. That's what I want to say. It could be worse.
Oh dear. No, thank you for playing along. Last one for you is I would rather eat my own teeth than reef without.
ICP.
Okay. Well, kind of obvious that one with you on this morning. Kind of obvious answer. But no.
Just quickly. I did notice it called out the corner of my eye. Ben Gillespie had a comment that he said would be interesting to ask you, and I think it was around calcium fluoride.
Go
If you
for
go
it.
back up, Tom, not that far back up, but Ben was making a point. And
Which
said
one?
there you go.
Ben?
Yeah, sorry. Do you want me to read it out for you, Ehsan?
Yeah, sorry, man. Sorry.
Okay. Calcium fluoride is not the same as fluoride. Calcium fluoride is a compound containing the fluoride ion, while fluoride itself is the anion, negatively charged, of the element fluorine.
Correct. What is the question?
I think he was having a conversation with someone.
Oh, Doug's in the chat. Yeah, morning, Doug. I didn't realise you were in there. Sorry. Ben, fluoride is the ion of fluorine. It is one of the most important elements needed in a reef biotope. So I think there's a bit of debate going off in the comments regarding your conversation about fluoride
what
earlier.
Is that? Just ask yourself, why is that so important? Because calcium fluoride is, when you have calcium fluoride, that's the stuff that is in your teeth. That's not soluble in water. So as soon as it's calcium fluoride is gone, there's no availability anymore. So why is any of that so important? Just ask yourself, why is it? What happens? The corals take it and put it in their skeleton and then live with it, and it's super important for what? That's just the question I have. Why is it so important? From the first person ever measured it in reef aquariums, I'm asking you this question. Why is it important? It's just so hard because it's all marketing, But it's okay. You just come up with it. Tell me.
There you go. I think there's a conversation to be had between.
Fluoroapatite is what is in teeth.
Yeah, but calcium fluoride is exactly not soluble as that stuff. It is not soluble. Just look it up. Calcium fluoride is not soluble in water. Just look at Wikipedia.
Calcium fluoride is 5% of coral skeleton. Got a debate going on here.
I don't believe that.
Got created in ICP wars. Anyway.
Well, it's good, isn't it? It's just a healthy debate again amongst,
But
it's
it is
good.
not measurable with ICP, boys. So how do you do it? Again, so it's not measurable with ICP, and then it's ICP wars. No, fluoride is not measurable with ICP. So, guys, I mean, we talk about the fluoride in the water, right? It could be barium in the water too. You know, some corals take barium because it's the same. Fluoride is the same like fluoride. So they take the barium and put it in as barium carbonate. But that doesn't mean they need it just because it's there, right? So in the ocean, it might not be there. They don't do it. But if it's there, it happens because it's the same combination, you know. So what is telling you it is needed? That's the question. It is needed for what? For survival? How did we keep corals alive before I measured fluoride? How? If it's so important, you know, like this is a real honest question of me. Like it is something that came up with me. I said we don't need it anymore. Then other people's carrying on. That's super important. But why? How could it be? I've never measured it when I was 12 years old and still kept aquapora alive. How? The reality is let it drop. How could it be my tank had zero fluoride available and looked like it looked? One of the craziest growing, crazy aquaporas tanks ever with a super healthy chlamydia. How could that be if it is so important? Just answer me that question. Now I'm going away.
I think there's a grey area between water testing or water chemistry and what my corals uptake individually.
Well, that's absolutely fine. The only problem is that you need to differentiate between the habitat, so the surrounding of the coral, and what do you need to deliver, and what the coral needs, right? So we don't know that. This is why we do science in the oceans, to find out where they live. And that's what we redo, like recreate. And I accept that fluoride is part of this, right? But then you go the next step and look at aquariums, look at extremes, look at aquariums that do not have fluoride in them. And they look exactly the same like the one that has fluoride in it. So then you look at how many you find like that. Then you look at scientific evidence with one system that some of them have TRITON with fluoride, TRITON system, some of them not. And then you look, is there a difference? Are they all calling out, oh, all our aquaporas dying, or all our montiporas dying? And this is just not happening. So then when I have all this data, I can say something about fluoride. If I do not have that data, how do I just justify to say fluoride is the most important thing in a reef? It's just a problem. The problem is the reflection. So I would like to know about Freck Farm, where he has this information from, because obviously he's not testing it. So if I'm not testing it on my own, then it's the next problem. How reliable is the testing of it? Then, you know, things like that happen, and it creates this craziness about one element. And I'm just not accepting running behind numbers like that and go crazy on one element. There's no holy grail. You need to care for an aquarium. That's what it is.
Frag from Ehsan is Doug Darrett from the UK. He's the Fauna Marine ICP representative. So that's his, obviously, that's Doug's thought on it. But
fine.
yeah, that's what keeps his hobby interesting.
He's not doing the ICPs, isn't he? So he's not doing the fluoride because ICP is not fluoride. So again, like it is an information flow that comes from a point of marketing, trickling down through people that market stuff. Like I'm not saying like I didn't know that, right? But this is information from the top. And then the question is, where is the top getting this information from? How could they make it so important, you know? So why is it? Are they here doing the science with us? No. Are they doing on their farm side? So what science do they do? Is it like anecdotal knowledge? Is it just somebody put it in and then think, look, this blue coral got blue or what? You know, what is it? And that's the problem, and you never know. And then it's just coming up in discussions that never end, you know. That's the problem.
Yeah. I'm just going to finish on a quite. I'm conscious that we've had you for 2 hours now. Thank you ever so much for staying with us. There's a question that Sean, who's obviously had to leave, unfortunately, because he had some technical issues. He wanted to ask you. He's a big avid fan of yours, the Triton range. And we wanted to ask you about your new feeding products. Are they a binder or a food source themselves? Is what he's asking.
No, they're just a binder. So that's what we do. That's what I said. We're checking right now on the pool, the parrotfish pool, and it's just a binder. So what you do is you create that, you mix your stuff in there, then you add that two components that precipitate and build crystals and cover that stuff that you want to feed the coral. So you can target feed the liquid foods. It's not made for powder foods, so that won't happen. So powders are anyway solid, so you can feed corals directly. But everything like liquid, like amino acids and stuff that people want to get into the coral, that's causing, when you do it this way, you will have like 70% less waste. You know, so because you add it into the water, then it, you know, decomposes, get your water dirty, but only maybe 30% goes into the coral, you know. But in that way, you can just make it a little bit solid and then feed it on the coral. That's pretty good. That's out of that pool. So obviously, it was the nature was that kind of inspiration for it, and it works pretty well. We tested it in that facility here. It's pretty good. You can test it on your own. Very simple, and wastage 70% less. That's pretty good.
Thank you very much.
No worries.
Right, I'm going to wrap us up there, Drip. We've done over an hour with Ehsan, and thank you ever so much for coming on, as always. Yeah. Could you just hang on in the green room for a couple of minutes afterwards? Me and Drip would just like to say something to you, if you don't mind. Just quickly, take up a lot of your time already. So, thank you ever so much, everybody, for tuning in this morning. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks ever so much, our guest, Ehsan from Triton, for coming on and giving his thoughts. Very interesting conversation this morning. I'm sure you'll agree,
This
Drip.
evening?
This evening, yeah, sorry, yes, for you. But no, thank you ever so much. Me and Drippy won't be on Friday. We're going on a trip. We are, hopefully we'll get there in one piece. We are going to hand it over to the one and only Ronald McDonald, Rob, and we have Leonardo coming back on from Leonardo's Reef. And he's tuning in for a Friday show. He has been warned, and he's saying he's looking forward to it. What could possibly go wrong? Go on, Ehsan.
Can I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
I'm doing this lives every Sunday in the morning. Yeah. So my morning, which is your evening at Saturday. So if anyone has still questions and stuff, just come on Instagram, Triton Reef, and then you'll find me there. Okay? So no worries. Yeah. I'll do that every
If you send me the link, and I'll put it in the description on this video for you.
Will do.
How's that? All right? Okay. Well, that just leaves us to say thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your Easter Sunday, and we'll see you all, soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Sweet.